Hi, everyone. Welcome to Barefoot with Spirit podcast show. I'm your host, Leanne, the Barefoot Medium, and I'm incredibly excited to connect with you. For those of you who don't know me, I'm an international medium, twin flame, transformational coach, and intuitive criminal investigator who is blessed to be able to connect people from all over the world with their passed over loved ones and to be able to bring through guidance to help people come into union with their twin flame and manifest what their soul needs, wants, and desires in life. Now, before we get started with today's episode, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I stand and on which my guest stands, and pay respects to elders past, present, and emerging. I extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and First Nations people who are tuning in from around the world. Now, kick off your shoes, take a few deep breaths, and join us for this beautiful, deep, intimate conversation with Andrew Thompson, my guest today, on strengthening the mind to achieve success and happiness. Welcome, Andrew.
Thanks, Leanne, for having me on your podcast. Really appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome. Now, Andrew is a high-performance coach and award-winning author who's been empowering people of all ages and walks of life, including elite athletes, high performers, and business leaders for over 25 plus years. He specializes in helping people to improve focus, clarity, and resilience, and get past their setbacks, failures, and fears, and perform at their best when it matters, so they can overcome the barriers that block them from living their best and most fulfilling lives. Wow. I'm so excited to dig into this conversation with you about the strength of the mind, success, and happiness. Now, talk to me a little bit about your background and how you came to be doing the work that you're doing.
So I guess it all started, as a kid, I always had aspirations of being the best I could be at whatever it was I was doing, whether it was school or sport. I was ambitious and always strove to kind of excel in all my pursuits. And that followed me along my whole life and eventually led to a career as a professional athlete and also professional coach. I did them concurrently because I picked a sport that didn't have a lot of money in it. So didn't have the luxury of playing the sport only exclusively. I had to coach along the way to make enough money to travel and stuff, in which I did travel to Australia and New Zealand, actually down near you. So those were great experiences. And, my life was going really well. And I started to work in the hospitality industry and eventually worked my way up to I guess eventually a CEO position. But prior to that, in 2016, I was struck with sort of a mystery illness at the time, which left me bedridden for over 22 hours a day for just under 5 months. And it took me about a year and a half to be able to get back to a full day of work and about 8 years to fully recover. So
Wow.
that sent me in a direction I never anticipated in my life, and is really, I always wanted to write a book, but the book could never be what it is today without having gone through that experience. I just don't think people would have connected with it the same way. It wouldn't have been written from the heart as much as as it was. It would have probably been exclusively focused on performing at your best. But a high performing mind is actually about overcoming adversity and performing at your best in life. And performing at your best in life sounds like, well, is that reserved for CEOs and athletes and stuff? And it's not. It's reserved for everybody, because the more you bring into your everyday life your best, you listen better to people when they speak, you connect more fully with loved ones and friends. Of course, you'll perform better in meetings and interviews and your pursuits, and all that leads to better life experiences. Because the more you bring your full self to something, the more you engage fully with your mind, the more you get more out of each situation, and you get better outcomes, better results. People feel heard and listened to, and life just moves along a lot more smoothly.
Yeah. Now there's a few things in there that I'd love to talk through a little bit more.
For sure.
First of all, the high achiever, I hear you on that. Some of us come into our life and our journey, striving for that sense of success external of ourselves, right? And I like how you talk about success is built through adversity and building that sense of resilience, because I think we often focus in on success and forget sometimes that there's failures along the way that everyone experiences, right?
Absolutely. Did you say failures along the way? I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
without a doubt. Then they can be self-created, and sometimes they're just seemingly acts of the universe or acts of God, whichever you prefer. So things can come along that you don't anticipate, and without having had, I really am a big believer in what sports can do to strengthen resilience, because even though like there's no life and death in sport, it does feel like that to the athlete. To tell an athlete that it's not life and death, they know that intellectually, but they're so emotionally invested from all the time and effort they put into it. It feels like the end of the world when they don't succeed. So through that process of failure and setbacks and not achieving your goals, and that's true for business too,
Mm.
you become more resilient because you recognize that you have no choice. You need to move through and move forward through the difficulties that happen in your life, the fear that comes along, the hardship that comes along. You still need to move through that.
Mm.
And that's really the only way to success, because I don't know many people who succeed the first time they try, aside from maybe an Instagram model. The
Yeah.
rest of us mortals have to toil their way through things. And, even with this book process of promoting a high performing mind, there's setbacks along the way. There's
Mm.
mistakes that I make. There's, social media posts that fall flat, or,
Yeah.
advertising campaigns that don't work out the way you hope. So these things happen. And if you're not resilient, then probably the number one thing that happens is people give up prematurely. And if you give up prematurely, you're never going to, live your dreams and reach those goals that you have for yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're intimately tied together is the best way
Yeah.
to say it.
Yeah. And I like the, that getting up and doing things, right? And running a business and promoting a book or whatever it is that you're focused in on, whatever it is that you desire, whether it's sporting achievements. And I have a beautiful friend whose children are high performing athletes, who are striving, one of which is striving for the next Olympic Games. So the time and energy and effort that's put into that, and a little bit of those failures and losses along the way, really help you navigate and focus in on whether what you're aiming for is what you really want as well, isn't it? And that
Absolutely.
mindset of, if this is what I desire, what do I need to do today to get there?
It's so true. Yeah, there are some circles where they believe that all you have to do is picture, visualize things, and it will make it happen. But it's just not reality from my perspective. Like the two have to go together, and I think it's really important to, I visualize every single day, and I have, since I was playing professionally or before that.
Yeah.
I think it's an integral part of the process, because you set your intention, number one, and that's part of a high performing mind. You have to have a clear desire or wish or want that you're trying to achieve in your life. And then once you set that desire, you visualize the outcomes that you eventually want to get to. And what that does more than anything is it really makes it clear what you need to do. So the steps that you need to take. So it comes down to actions. And that's one thing that I talk a lot about in the book is like, look, you can listen to this, but you're going to do it. And at the end of every chapter, there's a little exercise so that you can bring it into your own life. So
Yeah.
the first one is it deals with, what is your, purpose? What is your desire? What is it that you want in your life? And then do some exercises to help establish that, help you get past procrastination. And every chapter helps you go through these. You go through these exercises to really make it your own.
Mm.
And bottom line is that you create the actions that will move you towards your goal. You're never going to get there if you just sit in your living room thinking about it all day. Ultimately you got to get out there and do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like that. You talk about strengthening the mind. Talk to me a little bit about how we do that, right? Because that particularly for high performing people, that stress and that anxiety can be created from that overthinking, over analyzing brain, right, and mind that tells us stories about failure or success.
Hmm.
And we can make that our truth as well in the world, can't we? Talk to me a little bit about
Absolutely.
mind.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different angles to tackle that from, but I'll start with stories because I mean, I forget about that sometimes because I'm not a person who tells himself stories anymore. I certainly did at one point in my life, but now I'm very much like, what do I need to do and where am I going? And that's where I spend all my time. I don't think about whether or not I can or can't or what he said or she said. Or somebody's doubting me. Like I feel that, I hear that. But for me, that's not productive thinking. It's not efficient thinking. It's not thinking that's moving me in the direction that I want to go. So I think those are foundational things that help you create a stronger mind. But to back up a step, there's so many things in society today that weaken our minds. Technology, the way culture is going, where people are a little bit brittle in their emotions, and when people say things to them that they don't like, they're offended, or they want to block it out of their lives entirely, or cancel it and never have to deal with that again. But from my perspective, that's not the way to move through life.
Mm,
You need to actually feel that fully, even if it hurts. And that hurt will actually seal you and strengthen you emotionally and mentally. And that, until you can move through that on a regular basis without it totally derailing you. I can think of times back when I was competing that I was fragile and somebody would say something negative about my game and it would upset me for weeks. I would
mm,
replay my mind and think about it. And now I've gotten to the point where I'm like, well, that's your perspective. My
mm,
perspective is I'm going to do this and try my best and see where I get to. And it really doesn't stick to me at all anymore. But that's from having gone through it in a very honest and vulnerable way
mm.
where I feel it, I allow it to hurt me, I think about it, I make sure I realize that it's just another person's perspective, not mine,
Yeah,
and that I move forward towards my goal. And that takes time for sure, but there's principles that I talk about. It's one of the chapters. Chapter 5 is sticks and stones. The old concept may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. And I think it's an important message for the world right now because we're in a time sort of when names do hurt us.
yeah,
And it's learning not to take these things personally. So never, Don Miguel Ruiz's famous words, don't take what other people say personally. And I just add in say or do. Don't take that personally as well, because someone might wrong you. And then it's about their world, their story, and their perspective, and you can't take that to heart.
yeah.
So the whole thing is about bringing yourself. So getting stronger is becoming resilient. So
Mm,
recognizing there's going to be challenges along the way. People are going to say things that are going to hurt your feelings. But when you're mentally prepared for that landscape, you can walk through it with more mental strength. So the cornerstone of resilience is anticipating those things,
mm,
knowing that they're going to come. So that's where it starts. So that's step one for developing a stronger mind.
mm.
And then not taking things personally because people are going to be a part of this. Whether you want to hear it or not, there's going to be a review left for you, or your neighbor's going to tell you that you're wasting your time, or probably your mother or your daughter or your son or something. Family
Yeah,
members tend to be the ones who
yeah,
are more honest. So that's another step along the way. And then we can derail ourselves with our own doubts when things don't go well.
yeah.
And just funniest thing today is I sent out a promotion, an email. It's like a pitch letter, and somebody took the time to write me a one-page email of how I'm not going to succeed the way I'm doing things. And I just thought, wow, that's
Wow,
a lot of effort.
wow.
So that, and they took a lot of time, and then they just basically said that they're the best and they know the way, but they never said if it was a sales pitch for me to work with them, it wasn't clear.
Yeah,
And so that's just a perfect example of how like I can read. So I read it. I'm like, oh, well, that doesn't feel great, but that's that person's perspective. And all it does is make me more determined to succeed and, do whatever it takes that I can in order to try to, achieve the level of success that I'm looking for
yeah.
in this particular endeavor. So these points of people, saying things to you is going to be part of the equation. So being prepared for that mentally strengthens you. And of course, not taking it personally helps you.
Mm,
But when you do take it personally, it's most likely that you're believing a little bit of it, or it's
yeah,
aligning with one of your doubts. So
yeah,
doubts aren't who you are. They're just thoughts that come up, and you can continue past those,
yeah,
and they will eventually lose their energy, and then you continue towards your goal. So that doesn't mean that you don't ever, never, ever, ever give up. I mean, a
yeah.
certain level of reality will dictate whether you need to reassess the direction that you're going in. Is it time for a change? And these things happen.
Yeah.
But in terms of being derailed by one person or one thought or one particular moment, setback or failure or mistake, you can't let those things happen. So those are all like the foundational components of mental strength. But of course, the most perennial or the top of the food chain in terms of resilience is living in the present moment, right?
Yeah.
So if you live in the present moment, your mind is at its strongest point. You're
Mm.
not thinking about the past, you're not thinking about the future. You bring 100% of your mental resources to the here and now, into what you're doing.
Mm.
And when you bring 100% of yourself to anything, you are going to do it at a much higher level of proficiency than if you're, half on your phone, half paying attention, trying to do too many things at once, having doubts, there's so many things that can distract you. But the more you are able to bring your full mind to the present moment, the better you're going to be in your
Mm.
life in general. And,
Mm.
and of course, the happier you're going to be too, because you're not going to be thinking about the past or what people have said or how things are going poorly. So those are really the foundational and the most important elements of having a strong mind. It's not everything, but that's a great start.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
another one. Let's talk about fear before we finish, but that's another one that can come along.
Yeah. And I love how you talk about doubts and those stories that, we can either entertain them or allow them in our world, right? And give them time and give them energy and feed them really with energy. So I love how you talk about doubts. And you're right, some of our closest people in our world can be our biggest critics, and that's okay. We can work with that if there's some of our own doubts and emotions and things that come up in amongst it. It's really important to build that resilience and strengthen the mind to move through the thoughts, the doubts, the emotions that come up for you, and step into, is this really what I want and desire? If it is, how do I align myself, my mind, my emotions, my actions with moving towards that? So I love that you talk about and the importance of resilience. I think overcoming is a huge thing, whether it's an athlete or business or in relationships and families and financially and all of those spaces. There's different ways in which people in the world have to step into resilience or are being invited to be more resilient and strengthen that mindset. Talk to me about fear. What's your take on fear?
Fear is always going to be there. And I think the biggest mistake people make, an unrealistic mistake, is that they try to wish it away or wish they didn't have fear or don't want fear in your life. But I don't believe in that. I believe in moving through your fear and working with your fear. So there's two steps really that I talk about in a high performing mind. One is, say you have a fear of failing an exam, and that's, a month or two off. Well, first step one is listen to your fear and do something about it. So use your fear, understand what it is that you're afraid of failing, and then realize that's what you don't want. And what you do want is to succeed. So then you align all your actions and all the things that you're going to do towards succeeding. So I used to do that a lot in sport. I say, oh gosh, I'm so afraid of losing, this next tournament match or whatever it is. Well, I'm going to put that back here and now focus on what I want to do is I want to succeed. So what do I need to do? And, preparation and rehearsing and practice, that's the first step. So when you can, you do something about your fear as a message. I always think of my fear as my best friend. It's here to tell me what I don't want.
Yeah.
Then I do something towards where I want to go and what do I want to achieve. So you thank your fear for that message. Okay, thank you, fear. Now I'm going to move towards what I want to, achieve. So you rehearse, you prepare, you practice, and then you take tangible steps towards achieving your goals. So your fear points you in the direction you want to go. The second thing is sometimes you just don't have that opportunity to prepare, practice, and rehearse. You're in the moment. And in those moments, you have two choices: to run away, which isn't always realistic. So you're walking into a job interview. Oh my God, I don't think I can do this. And anxiety can come along. Fear has many different faces. And in that moment, you need to go through your fear. and continue forward and realize it's not forever. That intense feeling. And I had lots of anxiety with public speaking many years ago. And I learned because I was forced to,
Mm.
my work environment, I had to speak often in front of, hundreds of people. And I was forced to go through it. So I prepared. I always had my notes as a backup, and I just went through it because I had no option. It was like, do I want to throw away my entire career? No. So I'm going to go through this.
Mm.
And it always works out. It can be bumpy at first, and you can make some mistakes, and you might forget the direction you're going in, but you learn to just kind of work with that and move forward.
Mm.
So everybody has those fears. Fear of public speaking is a big one, and that's why I like to talk about it because a
Yeah.
lot of people can relate. But the end of the day, there's little things you can do. You can take some deep breaths. I have a lot of exercises in a high performing mind to help you come into the present moment so that you're in a much stronger place emotionally and mentally, so that going through the fear is a lot easier.
Yeah.
However, at the end of the day, you're still going to feel some degree if you've had a long history and pattern behavior of feeling anxiety and fear before certain things like competing or
Mm.
public speaking or interviews or exams or whatever it is, that will still come up, but your focus is the key. So you bring your focus to what it is you want to do and what it is you want to achieve, and
Mm.
then that's what your fear can help you do. So again, your fear becomes your friend because that fear is actually just energy.
Yeah.
And you take that energy and you apply it in the direction you want to go. And it's an incredible driver. I've seen people who are incredibly afraid to lose improvise some amazing creative responses to find ways to win. So it can be an incredible tool. So
Yeah.
again, wish your fear away, learn to use your fear. And I really believe that's where self-mastery comes in. You get to eventually is you learn to use everything that comes along in your life in a positive direction.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of what a high performing mind is all about is people can be in some really difficult and challenging circumstances. I was bedridden for four
Mm.
and a half months. I couldn't get out of bed. I was so weak I couldn't even go down the stairs for my son's 3-year-old birthday. So I
Wow.
can relate. And a lot of people have been in situations even harder than
Mm.
that. And so you've got to just be able to make the best of your circumstances, no matter what they are.
Yeah.
So a high performing mind is if your circumstances are survival and making it through your day, it has tools to help you do that. If
Yeah.
your circumstances are I want to excel and you're in a fortunate place in your life to have a strong body, strong and healthy body and mind, and then you can bring your focus to that. But it's the same things. It's the same things to the same mental tools and strategies and approaches to help
Mm.
you do both those things.
Yeah. I love how you talk about fear having many faces,
Mhm.
firstly. And, fear often is letting us know that there's something we're being invited to step into or take an action around that is out of our comfort zone. And so that's where that resilience comes in as well, right? Because often fear comes up, whether it's public speaking or a fear of failure or, fear in all different ways, right? Fear of change.
Yeah,
um, yeah, right. Because, people love certainty, and change can bring up an enormous amount of fear and anxiety and stress and overwhelm and all of those things, which is many of those faces of fear. Um, and so, resilience and courage and that strength to be able to come back to you in that present moment and really take a look at what is fear inviting me to step into or take an action around is, a really empowering way to look at fear. And rather than sitting in that victim mode, I guess, we can do sometimes, can't we?
absolutely. I don't know another way to be anymore. So I was trying to explain this. So
Yeah.
when fear comes for me or anxiety or anger or any emotion, I don't know what to do other than just be there with it.
Yeah.
So I don't wish it away. I just stay with those feelings as long as it takes for them to run their course.
Yeah.
So, I feel fear, and when fear comes along, then I'm like, okay, here we go. I'm just gonna wait this one out.
Yeah.
So, I had tremendous fear that I would never be able to work again or support my family or be able like one of the symptoms was that I wasn't able to elevate my heart rate above resting level
Mm,
without, being hospitalized. And, I thought I'd never be able to exercise again or
mm,
do all the things that I loved. But the one that rocked me the most was like I had two children and a wife to support, and I didn't know if I'd ever be able to work again.
mm,
So I had tremendous fear, depression and
mm,
anxiety and all kinds of things that came up throughout that process. And they were long lasting, like,
mm.
and so I just stayed with those emotions until they ran their course.
Yeah,
Uh, my perspective is that if I were to push them away or resist them or run from them, I'm just going to make them come back at another time in the future.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I stay with these things, and I may as well go through it in the now and get it behind me and move forward in a more positive and constructive way.
yeah,
So I'm a believer that those emotions aren't forever. They're temporary. And so temporary can feel like a long time.
yeah,
And, we want to jump out of our skin sometimes when we're scared. But if you can find the courage to stay with the fear, the intensity will diminish. And in fact, when we resist our fear, the intensity will amplify. So there's
yeah,
plenty of there's plenty of motivation to stay with your emotions, because if you do resist, they persist and get louder from my experience and from
yeah.
my perspective.
From my experience as well. And I love that. One of the things I often talk to my clients about, and I do personally, which is what I share, is emotions are just energy that come up for us, or feelings, whatever it might be, to be acknowledged and to be present with. So they're messages and coming into our world to tell us something. So sitting with them and being present with them and allowing them to be is really important. Whether it is sadness, depression, or anger, or anxiety, or stress, or whatever, I often say to people, I feel, start the day with how do I feel today? I feel sad, I feel stressed, whatever it might be. And that's okay, because that little phrase in and amongst itself allows you to step through it rather than resisting and struggling and fighting with it, or trying to use the logical brain to figure out what it's there for. It's just allowing it to be. I feel sad, and that's okay. And what I need is to sit with this. What I need is to feel this in my body and allow it to move through me. What I need is to go for a walk, or whatever those tools or techniques are that you use that work for you. I feel happy, and that's okay, which brings me to that next part. How do we strengthen that success and happiness in our world as well? Because I think sometimes people who may be watching or listening can get so focused in on the what's not working or what's
Mm.
not going well. How do we then shift that focus, or that mindset, or that doingness, to the success and happiness, and
Um,
recognizing those things in our world, because we all have them?
I'm so glad you asked that question, because I realized as I spoke earlier about, being with your emotions, that it may have sounded like I just sit there, but I don't. It's about moving forward with constructive responses and action. So I always say that positive actions will always trump negative thoughts.
Yeah.
So when I was hospitalized, I had lots of negative thoughts. I shared some of them earlier about thinking I might never work again and then all those things. And I suffered from depression through that process. And at some point after you go through, especially when they're particularly intense situations, there's a mourning period, or there's a period that you need to kind of just like, you can't really do much else. You're so fixated on what's going wrong, but you
Yeah.
eventually, and I did have to get to a place where you replace the negative thinking with positive, constructive actions.
Mm.
So moving forward and identifying the things that you can do to improve your circumstances. And that's really what a high performing mind is all about. So that is the
Mm.
first and foremost, most important thing that you have to do to create success and happiness in your life. So when you're sad, you know, when I'm sad, I go, okay, well, I'm feeling a little sad today, but I'm still going to, list out the things that I need to do to kind of be successful and happy.
Yeah.
because I'm sad in the moment, in the present moment, but I can change that to be happier and successful in the future. But
Yeah.
I've got to take the actions on a daily basis in order to get there. So just to reframe that all over again, or to kind of summarize it, positive actions will always trump negative thinking and negative emotions
Yeah.
if you consistently move yourself in that direction. So that's step one.
Mm.
Step two is being clear about what it is that you want.
Mm.
So, in fact, that's, some people could argue that's step one and the other step two. So, being clear about what you want, you have to have clarity about the direction that you want to go in. So, if you're
Mm.
like, oh, this is going so poorly, I can't believe this is going wrong and that's going wrong, and this person said that, you're actually moving yourself in the wrong direction each time. You're spending time on what they said that wasn't right, or what is going wrong, or what you didn't want to have happen. You have to have a look at what didn't go wrong so you can kind of plan the adjustments you're going to make to move forward. So
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in making adjustments. Something failed. Okay, what did you learn from that experience? What adjustments can you make? And now how are you going to move forward in a slightly different way?
Yeah.
So that's another step that you take. So being clear about what you want, identifying the positive and constructive actions you can take, and that might take a little bit of a look back at the failure or the setback to see how you can change things going forward. And
Mm.
then there's a number of other things that you can do along the way. First of all, you've always got to bring your best to the equation. If you're only giving a half effort or 50% effort, don't expect fantastic results. Mediocre
Yeah.
effort leads to mediocre results,
Yeah.
right? So the
Yeah.
habit of always doing your best, it sounds like such a basic thing. Like sometimes I hear people say, well, these are familiar concepts, some of these things that you're talking about. Right, but do you do them? It's
Yeah.
about training your mind to do these consistently so it's all you do all the time.
Yeah.
So I always bring my best, whether I'm sweeping the floor
Mm.
or doing a podcast or, launching a book. I'm always doing my best. It doesn't mean I'm doing a great job, but I'm always doing my best. And maybe I have things to learn along the way.
Yeah.
Then I bring my focus to the process, and I identify what my outcomes are that I'd like to achieve and what steps I need to do that. And a high-performing mind walks people through how to do that in detail in chapter 6, as you kind of get into some goal setting so you can get very clear about what it is that you want for yourself in your life.
Mm.
Then you focus on the process and not just thinking about it. You got to get into the action. So that's a common theme throughout the
Yeah.
book. And using those negative moments to get clear about what it is that you do want,
Yeah.
using your fear and then moving through fear when necessary,
Yeah.
and then present moment focus to achieve flow. So
Mm.
that's sort of the highest level. Achieving flow or peak performance is also known as that, but I believe that flow should be a regular thing for everybody. And that can be achieved by just living a large period of your time mentally in the present moment.
Mm.
And as you do that more frequently, it's almost like meditating in every moment.
Yeah.
You're here, you're present, you're focused, you're awake with what's going on, and you're always moving in a constructive direction. And then having the courage to pursue your dreams, and that's where the book uh, takes us in chapter 12. The final chapter is just living with courage.
Yeah.
So it's easier said than done sometimes. And, I can still find moments where, there's certain environments where I'm comfortable living with courage, but there's still other environments where, oh, I need a second attempt at that. I'm going
Yeah.
to work this time. And it's okay to have that first failure. Don't let anybody say, oh, just because you did it wrong the first time, wrap back around and walk through that fear the second time. I have plenty of times where I'm like, oh yeah, wait a second, I'm running from my fear. Okay, I'm going to go through it. So
Yeah.
that's perfectly okay. So lots of second attempts. I think that's perfectly okay. And move forward with courage when you can.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you talk about the different, um, I call it the wobble, right? We often have those moments where we can wobble with uncertainty and doubt and fear and all of those things, and bringing ourselves back into that present moment and really centering and getting clear on what it is that we desire. And sometimes that wobble is what lets you know that you're not clear and that it's time to come back and go, hang on, what is it that I want? And I love that you talked about, are you doing it? Because I had a conversation with a client last week about, there was some stuff around her business, and I went, hang on a minute. we talked about this back last year. Are you actually doing this? Because this has been sitting there for you to do and take action around for quite some time. How willing are you to commit to that action? And that in and of itself, asking that question of yourself, whether it's around your physical health and well-being, your business or your career or your work, or your emotional health and well-being, financially, whatever it might be. How willing are you to commit to the actions that you need to take, or how willing are you to change that mindset and sit with your emotions or fear that might come up along the way, along the journey, because it's a journey to success and happiness. They're two parts of a continuum. Success can't exist without failure, and happiness can't exist without sadness, because you can't know happiness without knowing sadness. You can't know success without knowing failure. And so give yourself a break along the way and allow yourself to step into that I'm learning, I'm growing, and rather than judging yourself in amongst it, is what I would kind of say to people who are maybe in that space of feeling like they're not quite getting there. How committed are you to taking the actions you need to take to get to where you want to go?
That's so true. Yeah. One of the quotes that people seem to like from the book is, I'm the same person 10 minutes after I fail, only wiser. So it's definitely a part of the journey. It's an unavoidable part of the journey. And, it's about taking, having that little moment of assessment and what can I learn from this failure to move forward in a more successful way. I
Yeah,
totally agree. I think one uh, problem, there's lots of problems with the world, but one misconception is like there's a certain segment of people out there who want to read every book,
yeah,
take in every bit of knowledge, and they think that is going to get them to success. It's not like, and sometimes people are looking for new, oh, what's the new idea? Forget a new idea. The steps towards success are universally followed by high performers and people who have succeeded around the world. You take from, famous political leaders like Nelson Mandela and Mahatma Gandhi to, the Michael Jordans and Kobe Bryants of the world to,
yeah,
the most successful business people. They've all gone through the same steps, but they did it. Not they did it in the sense that they succeeded. They were willing to go through that process. They
yeah,
all always bring their best to the equation. There's no way you're number one in the world without that mental attitude. There's no way you're number one in the world without, by taking things personally, letting the words of other people derail you, because that is such a common, way
mm-hmm.
people fail. And there's
Yeah,
no way you're number one in the world by only sitting on your couch thinking about it, or, letting fear make you run in the other direction,
yeah,
or getting consumed by negative thoughts and not finding a way to take positive actions, or being very present in the moment so that you can find flow and those best performances. Like if you go into a business meeting and you pitch, I don't know, a board of directors from a big company, and you're having a bad day, you're less likely to, win that particular business than you are with your competitor if they happen to have a good day. So all those things add up towards, succeeding more often. And, when you succeed more often, you tend to be a little bit more content and happier about the way your life is going. So all
yeah,
that, they're not big secrets. They are things that have been around for a long time. Sometimes people lose sight of them. So I put them all in a book, A High Performing Mind, and it helps people kind of understand all the steps that they need to take in order to kind of achieve and build the life they want. And whether that's being, if they have very ambitious plans, like they want to be a CEO or top in the world, like you said, your friend who wants to be an Olympic athlete, or whether you just want to be the best you can be in your life, which is equally valid and important. You want to be the best partner you can be, the best parent you can be.
yeah,
You want to be the most supportive for your child who wants to develop in a particular way, or you want to do really well in school and do well on your exams. Like doing well is an unfortunate characteristic of life where
yeah, yeah,
it helps us get to where we want to go. So,
yeah,
sometimes there's a bit of a movement afoot to like, well, we'll just like everybody will win, or
yeah,
we all will get an equal part. But really, at the end of the day, there's still a merit-based component in society that just is a fact of life that is sort of unavoidable.
yeah. I agree. So, can you share with people, Andrew, where they can get a hold of a copy of your book or connect with you and work with you more?
Yeah, thank you. So, High Performing Mind, Strengthen Your Mind and Live Your Best Life by Andrew D. Thompson is available at any most bookstores around the world. But of course, Amazon's always your easiest bet.
Yep.
I'm giving them all this free advertising all the time. I was speaking so highly of that. It just comes quickly and reliably. So Amazon is always a good bet. But you can find it pretty much if you want to support your local bookstore. I'm always a big fan of that. You can, of course, find me on my website. So that's Andrew D's and Dog Thompson.com. I'm also on social media. The joke for me with social media is that for years I shunned it. Wouldn't go on social media. It was a waste of my time and energy. And now here I am begging social media to help me promote my book.
Yeah.
I came groveling back, and now I'm on social media. So my followings on YouTube are very good, but other places need a little help and support. So anybody who wants to kind of find me on Instagram or Facebook or X or any of those, you can find me there as well. Andrew D. Thompson will usually get you there, and all
Fabulous.
that stuff is on my website, so you'll be able to find it there as well. Lots of videos on
Fabulous.
YouTube from previous interviews and podcasts. So if you're looking for more, you can
Yeah.
definitely find it there.
Yeah, awesome. And we'll put the links to your book and your website on the video or the audio of this episode as well. Thank you so much for joining me, Andrew, and for sharing your knowledge and your wisdom and supporting people to step more into or strengthen their mindset for more success and happiness in their world. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks so much, Leanne. It was a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. For those of you who want to connect with me more, check out my website, thebarefootmedium.com.au. Head over to social media, the Barefoot Medium, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all of those normal places. And I look forward to connecting with you in the next episode of Barefoot with Spirit podcast show.